So the Olympics for Team USA has officially started, with them already playing 3 games against Canada, Australia, and Serbia. They were able to win all 3 games through sheer talent, athleticism, coaching, and IQ. With the roster that is currently constructed right now, many NBA fans believe that Team USA is unstoppable and should dog walk every single country in the world. And on paper, it should be that way. However, there are just a few things that the team needs to address in order for them to be that untouchable force. So far, Team USA has looked good in all games that they've played, but there has been some clunkiness with the team's offense and defense. First things first, the starting lineup. That is something that is constantly talked about with this team online because there's just a ton of talent and great players on this team. Who do you pair up with each other in the starting unit? And Steve Kerr, being the head coach of the team, has experimented with many different starting lineups. He's played 3-guard lineups with Steph, Book, and Jrue Holiday. He's tried inserting Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum into the starting lineup. Mid-game, he has tried to pair the starting lineup with AD. He's tried all sorts of things, but fans are advocating for 2 different things. They want Ant in the starting lineup because they believe he's the #1 option, and they want AD in the starting lineup because he's a versatile front court defender. Here's the issue with the starting lineup and what fans don't realize. Steph, Bron, and Tatum are ones that should be inserted into the starting lineup. Why? Because they understand how to function in a 5-out side-to-side offense that includes player/ball movement. They play for teams that utilize that kind of offense. Warriors, Lakers, and Celtics incorporate a ton of that into their system, so of course they're going to fit and work with each other much better than any other superstar. Ant, however, is an outlier in this case because anytime the ball swings to him, he doesn't look to move within the offense. He's not swinging the ball, he doesn't flow into the next action, he doesn't move a whole lot without the ball, and he doesn't set screens. Once he catches the ball, he tends to hold the ball and take his time. He essentially doesn't read and react, and that hurts the team's offense because it slows the game down for Team USA. It's much better when he pump fakes and applies dribble penetration for a mid-range jump shot. It's just with him there's not enough of it. The same thing applies to Embiid. Embiid is not exactly a fulcrum or a hub in the offense where he'll move the ball, move without the ball, or run DHOs. He's gonna catch the ball, hold it, and start jab stepping or pump faking, and that slows the game down for the team. Now, to be fair, Joel Embiid was much better last game in terms of making quicker decisions. He didn't hold the ball. Instead, he actually tried to keep the offense flowing by hitting backdoor cutters and setting screens for shooters. However, it is still a work in progress as it's not something that he's exactly familiar with. But the point is, Ant and Embiid don't exactly fit with the starters because they play in a system where the offense runs through them with the ball in their hands in order for them to exist on the floor. Whereas guys like Steph, Bron, Tatum, AD, Bam, and even Booker as well, those guys don't need that kind of treatment in order to be effective. It's important for the team to utilize the system and philosophy of 5-out with a ton of motion because in international play, there are no defensive 3 seconds, so guys can just camp in the paint. Plus, foul baiting calls that are usually called in the NBA don't get called in the Olympics. I mean, there was a possession where Joel Embiid had an easy layup underneath the rim, and my mans tried to run into Jokic and draw a foul, and the ref said nah. Also, the court is smaller, so that's less space to work with, and teams can scheme a little easier. So that's why playing that heliocentric type of offense isn't going to exactly work the same way because you're not moving the defense as much. Swapping out Ant is easy because guys like Jrue Holiday and Devin Booker can easily fill in the role since Book is a good movement shooter and Jrue is a very good cutter along the baseline. But inserting AD as the X5 instead of Embiid is going to be an issue more than people think. And the reason why is because AD and Bam are a really good defensive duo. They work very well with each other, and to all of a sudden now break that up, it's going to affect the chemistry and the connection of the bench. Although Embiid is not a great all-around defensive player, I believe as long as we can play the right coverage and the POA defenders do a great job of chasing over the top in the rear view, we should be able to sustain on the defensive end with Bron and Tatum in the back line. And the thing with Embiid is that it's not an effort thing with him. It's just that he's not as physically gifted to be the type of defender that AD or Bam is. So to conclude everything, I think the starting lineup is going to be fine as long as you play Bron, Steph, and Tatum together. But again, styles make fights, and in some games, maybe AD might have to have a big defensive assignment and he needs to be inserted into the lineup. Or we might need to space the floor out with everybody on the floor, and in that case, Joel Embiid might be back into the lineup. But the truth is, everything needs to fit. What people don't understand is that this ain't a pickup game where we assembled the Avengers and play 5 of the best players in the world. This is organized basketball at the highest level. There's only one basketball, and everyone has to find their role and work with with one another because it's a team sport at the end of the day. You can't assume that the 5 best players are going to automatically work with each other. The second thing that I want to touch on is the defensive coverages that Team USA has been using. Now, Steve Kerr has been a coach who has utilized a ton of switching in the past, especially during the KD era where the Warriors would break out that Hamptons 5 lineup and just switch everything. So with a team that has some defensive versatility like Tatum, Bron, AD, and Bam, and also with some good athleticism as well, it makes sense that he would incorporate this. However, it seems as though this is something that can't be applied every single time because teams all around the country have been catching up in terms of the technicality of basketball. Against a team like Canada that has good pull-up shooters like SGA and Jamal Murray, switching is a good idea because there's enough length and lateral quickness from our wings or the center to be able to bother that. Anthony Davis has been the staple of that because he was absolutely terrific in that game against Canada. He switched on to SGA and guarded him out in the perimeter with many possessions that ended in 0 points. And to add to that, he can do everything else on the defensive end while guarding on the perimeter. Rim protection from inside the paint, the weak side, or in the rear view, it doesn't matter. He's likely going to swallow up your shot at the rim. He's a great pick and roll defender where he's always in a good position to bother the ball handler, but he can also rotate over to the roll man and disrupt any kind of shot at the rim. He can also give multiple defensive efforts through ground coverage. I mean, it's a long list. As a defensive player, there are not a lot of things that he can't do. I truly believe that he's the best defensive player in the league by far. But going back to the point, switching against teams that possess a lot of good pull-up shooting could be a good idea, but against teams like Australia that uses a ton of slips and cuts, that's going to be a problem because our bigs are lifted up at the 3-point line. So the screener can essentially slip or ghost the screen and roll straight to the basket and put pressure in the back line. And usually when that happens, guys are going to have to force to scram switch in the back line to avoid mismatches underneath the rim. But Australia executed a strategy around this coverage where guys like Jock Londale kept slipping out of screens and got wide open cuts to the basket because our guys were constantly getting caught on the top side. Our guard defenders, Bron, everyone was the victim of it. They did a good job of sealing as well once they slipped to prevent the scram switch in the back. Because of this, Australia almost came back late into the game. And this isn't a matter of talent, personnel, matchups, or anything of that nature. This is just tactics and execution. Australia has significantly less talent than Team USA, and they were able to compete with them through a good game plan. But in the game last night against Serbia, Team USA opted to switch less and play more drop coverage, and the results were great. Keeping AD or Bam in the paint is like cheating on defense because there were possessions where AD was the screen defender and Bam was the low man or the roamer, and that straight up disrupted any shot attempts at the rim or any kind of passing lanes. And it worked the other way around as well. Bam is the screen defender in a drop, he's guarding 2 guys at once, then switches over to Jokic, funnels him into AD as the low man, and AD gets the block. I mean, talk about defensive versatility, rim protection, crowding passing lanes, etc. I think for the most part, playing drop coverage should be the primary coverage for Team USA. Unless we have to switch, I think AD and Bam being inside the paint with no defensive 3 seconds is going to be hard to crack. And the reason why is because AD can eat up so much real estate in the paint, Bam is a good screen defender, and other guys in the back line can just stay home on corner shooters. Obviously this would work best if the team that we're playing has no shooting in the front court or a stretch 5. Not to mention, Embiid works much better with his coverage, and our guard defenders have been doing a pretty good job at the POA, which is essential for drop coverage defense. The third thing that I want to address is Steph Curry. Now Steph has been playing pretty well. He had one bad game on the stat sheet against Australia, but there's a reason for that. So we already know that Steph is known for being a deadly off-ball threat. Teams and defenders praise his ability to move and relocate without the ball. Having the reputation of being the greatest shooter ever, teams obviously know that, so they have the mentality of anyone but Steph. So in the Australia game, there were moments where Australia doubled the post from the top of the key, Steph was the corner shooter, and when the ball was passed, 2 guys ran to Steph in the corner, and Bron and Ant got wide open catch and shoot threes. As a Warriors fan, this is nothing new to see. This is typical for Steph. But what I'm not used to is Steph just being stagnant and not moving. If Steph is standing still and attracting 2 defenders, I'ma need him to be involved more in the offense. A ton of superstars generate high quality shots for their team by putting pressure on the defense through rim pressure. This means sinking the defense closer to the rim in order to get the defense moving in rotation. This can be dribble penetration, roll gravity, cutting to the basket, offensive rebounds, and post-ups. But however, Steph puts pressure on the defense in a completely different way, and it's through his gravity. He moves away from the basket and he'll attract 2 defenders that'll lead to guys getting wide open anywhere on the floor. Not too many people have the gravity to attract 2 guys without the ball like Steph, and you saw it against Serbia. Steph executed a ton of flex cuts for Tatum, and that led into a pin down for him. 2 guys stay with Steph, or 1 defender gets caught in no man's land, which leads to an easy bucket. Not to mention the inverted picks that Steph sets for LeBron. No one's gonna leave Steph, so Bron is going to use his rim pressure and make plays. Having Steph is such a luxury to the team, especially in this international style of play, because he has the ability to collapse the defense the best with his off-ball movement. So Steve Kerr, stop letting Steph just sit in the corner in some games, please. The last thing that I want to talk about is Derek White. Now, people are pissed about Jaylen Brown getting snubbed in Team USA, including him as well. At first, I felt the same way like everybody else, but eventually, I understood it. Derek White didn't get too much PT when he was on the floor against Serbia, but if you were watching him, you can see what he brought to the table. He's an off-ball player that can contribute to the philosophy of the offense. He plays in Boston, where this is an essential thing to move the ball and keep the offense flowing. Boston does a great job of using rim pressure through dribble penetration. Once they get the defense in rotation, they get a lot of swing threes, and Derek White is a big part of that. There was a possession during the game where he caught the ball, I think at the top of the key, and immediately drove and threw a great lob pass to Bam. It was a quick decision that he made. Now, Bam didn't finish the play, but that is perfect for Team USA. Derek White is a read and react guy who will fit in with his team's offense. He won't waste a ton of time, and instead he'll make quick decisions to help the team. He's a great shooter, shot 40% from 3 in the playoffs on 8 attempts. On defense, he's a great POA defender. He can get around screens very well. He's the best shot blocking guard for a reason, and he can execute great ground coverage. He can dig into the lane, fly out to the 3-point line, and get a good contest. He can give you a ton of defensive efforts. Like, do you guys remember that one possession in the playoffs where Boston played Indy, and there was a possession where Derek White was guarding Tyrese Haliburton in a ball screen action, and he goes over the pick, Jrue Holiday is up at the level, and then Derek White trails from the top of the key into the back line to disrupt a lob attempt at the rim. That is what defensive effort truly means, and Team USA needs that. They need that type of effort in the back line and on the weak side, and Derek White is a great guy to do that. I like Jaylen Brown, and he can certainly do all of the things that I just mentioned, but it's not his specialty. He's the type of player that needs the ball in his hands, and in terms of who fits better with Team USA, it's Derek White. It's the same situation with the starting lineup. It's not an obligation to select the best player possible. We have most of the top 10 players in the league. It's just in this situation, as a substitution, it's just a matter of whether or not it works, and in this case, Derek White works a lot. Plus, he's my favorite role player and one of the best winning players in the league. To quote Keith Cap a lot, he's top 5. Top 5 what? I don't know, but he's top 5.